today we are doing our second day of our online training, which is brand and messaging. So it's all about putting together the message and the profile, I guess the presence of what you're trying to say and what you're trying to communicate with your local community and your parents and so forth. Obviously, remembering that we're really focusing on parents, typically mums, and obviously families that have children in your local area. Tomorrow we'll actually be talking about targeting those people. Today we're talking about talking to those people, and we're very lucky to have the wonderful Hannah Harper, who is in charge of all of our production and manager of our gymnastics and kids activity center operations, and also she manages our e-com and all of the hard yards that go to actually getting people to do things using online processes and branding and messaging and so forth. So with that, Hannah, I'll let you take over.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. So just kind of building off of that. So just to give you all a little bit of background on myself. So as Andy said, I've been with the company since almost day one, I guess, working on different campaigns. And I spend a lot of my time writing copy and building messaging that resonates with a variety of audiences. So dissecting who I'm speaking to, what resonates with them, and ultimately getting them to make an action. With the gyms, that's sometimes submitting a contact form or making a phone call, but what is that brand and messaging that's going to get that parent to take the next step? I have a long sports background. I actually run a nonprofit myself in my spare time for young girls in sport. And so I have a lot of experience, not only marketing for kids activity centers from working with clients and customers in Creatively Disruptive, but I also have that experience with the nonprofit I run as well. So just kind of being able to experiment on both sides. And I would say I'm kind of a digital marketing nerd, and that's really grown over the last few years, and getting the opportunity to work with so many gyms and just find out what's working is just one of my love languages, I guess you would say. So today, just before we get into what we're going to cover, there's a whole bunch of things that, like when you say brand and messaging, that list is endless. And so I'm going to focus on a couple key things today, and also a couple small things that I'm hopeful that all of you can walk away with to take action in your own businesses that will give you immediate kind of positive steps moving forward. And some of them are more long-term things, but some are just really quick things that you can do to really optimize your digital presence. So we're going to talk a little bit about who your customer is, and that's going to be somewhat universal for everyone, but the language they speak and the messaging that resonates with them might be a little bit variant based on where you are. Some different things that we should be considering right now based on the climates that we're in, and each state and each location is in a different place, and that goes all the way from the virus to diversity and all those things in between, and just how we attack that. How we can kind of ad copy that will resonate with your audience. We're going to do an exercise on how to do that. And part of that is going to be breaking down what makes you unique and leveraging that to your benefit. And then we'll finish with a couple little website checklist items that you can maybe take away to hopefully that the people that are coming to your website or are engaging with your brand are seeing what they want so that they can take the action that you're hoping they will. So, and last thing, if you have questions, we have a small enough groups that's here. So please either send it through the chat in the group, or you can, during a transition, you can ask that question. And if we need further discussion, we can also move it to the end as well. But this is open for lots of conversation as well. Okay, so let's break down a couple key things. So brand consistency. So I think all of us probably know that having a recognizable brand is really important. And I know all of you are probably in different stages in what your brand is. And so thinking about creating that consistency with your brand, and what does that look like? So for example, I'm assuming all of you have a logo for your business. What are the colors that are associated with your logo? Are those colors represented on all of your social accounts, on all of your, on your website, on your flyers, etc.? So like the small thing of having brand color consistency. And if you use a red, that you're using the same red on all of those different pieces. Because color is a really interesting way how people create and draw connection. Fonts. So fonts is another big one. Having a unique font for your headers, for example, or that you're using on all of your type for different things. There's obviously some limitations with that with social media posting, because you can only use the fonts they have, but on all the graphics you're creating, are the fonts consistent? Language. So this is things but kind of like your brand voice. And I found that this is something that can take a little bit of time to develop, and thinking about you as a gym, who are you speaking to? What is the persona of your business? And so are you a gym that's focused on fun and confidence building and those types of things? And so speaking in a language that resonates with that type of consumer. And we're going to break that down a little bit more later when we go through unique selling proposition and language. But language is probably one of the ones that's, I would say, is harder to master because it takes a little bit of work to break down who you're actually speaking to. And theme is just kind of overall the digital and non-digital places that your brand is present. Is there a consistent theme to what that looks like? So maybe on your website you have a lot of gradient type style of imagery, so you have fading colors. So maybe on all your flyers you should also replicate that type of theme. Or on your social media, maybe you have a certain way of structuring your Instagram grid. And so creating a theme for your brand. And really the biggest reason that we want to do this is that brand recognition. And so that when people see your content in different places, before they even dig into it, there's like a unconscious connection that they're making with your brand based on the visually what they're seeing. The next thing is staying current. The digital space is always changing. So this is one that can be challenging. So sometimes I often recommend to small businesses that are probably wearing lots of hats. They're responsible for doing multiple things within their business, not only running the business, but doing the social media, etc., is thinking about what channels work for you and starting there and mastering those before trying to do too many different things. Because when you try to do too many different things, it's really hard to stay up to date on what's working, and also making sure that you're optimized for success there. So when I talk about channels, that's as a brand, let's say you have a Facebook page, an Instagram, a Pinterest, a YouTube, a Twitter, a blah, blah, blah. It can be really challenging to manage all of those effectively. And thinking about, okay, well, maybe let's focus on these two channels because we know that's where our parents hang out, and maybe that's Facebook and Instagram. And let's focus on doing that well. And once we get that mastered, then we can expand. Once we're able to stay on top of that, then we can expand. I put website functionality in parentheses here, and we're going to talk about websites a little bit more later too, but having a website that functions and is optimized for mobile responsiveness is really important, because not only does that give your users a better experience, but also that actually helps you rank higher organically through Google search. So if people are looking for things in your community and your website's not mobile responsive, that can actually ding you through Google search. The last thing is, and I'm sure we all are aware of this, and often we don't have time for this or don't make time, is having a plan and a framework. So I would, I know everybody's kind of running in different directions, but a project that I would highly suggest you spend some time doing if you haven't got it already is creating a brand guide for your business. And it doesn't have to be complicated. So I just worked on a brand guide the other day. There was literally one page, and it was the logo, the colors, the fonts, and some like hashtags. Like that was the start of the brand guide. And why that's great to have is that you can hand that to your staff and say, hey, this is the rules that we follow in our business when we're doing social media, when we're doing flyers, etc. And now all of a sudden you're able to delegate to somebody else but they also have a tool to help them be more successful, and that takes one more thing off your plate. Also using social media tools, so apps like Later or Loomly or Hootsuite that you can actually pre-schedule your content out. If you have somebody that works at your front desk, or maybe even an intern, that can be a really good space for them to manage, and that really helps you maintain that consistency with your brand. I know when I first started out with my nonprofit, social media content would go up and down based on how much time I had that week. And so I really tried to get into the habit of once a month on a Sunday, I would pre-schedule out 2 to 3 posts a week for the month. And then now I know at least at a minimum, there's that consistency with 2 to 3 pieces of content going out. And then I don't have to worry about that. And then I can always add things in organically as well. Andy, I don't know if you have anything to add, but just please chime in when you want to. Okay. So this is probably one of the biggest things that goes into, for myself, how I craft a message that resonates with the business that I'm responsible for. So looking at a kids activity center, looking at a gymnastics gym, you always want to write your messaging from the lens of who you're trying to sell it to, or who you're trying to get to take action. And I know for myself, when so I actually run, the nonprofit I run is actually for rugby, and so sometimes I would struggle to write copy for people that knew nothing about rugby, because I know a lot about rugby. So I'd speak in a language that I thought was understanding to me, but it wasn't necessarily understanding to a mom who had never heard about rugby for girls before. So as a gym owner, you sometimes have to take a step back and think, is the person I'm trying to get into my gym, are they familiar with this product? Are they familiar with how it works? And sometimes taking a step back and then writing in a language and a message that resonates with them. So one of the biggest things that influences also the decision-making process over that consumer is the verbiage and how you're positioning it for them. So we talk about the why, and I think Andy, you've probably all heard from Andy talking about the why in marketing and what that means, and really thinking about what motivates that parent to take action. And there's you can write things like, we have air conditioning, we have the best uneven bars, blah, blah, blah. But is that what makes a parent want to sign their 2-year-old son up for tumble tykes at your gym? Probably not. What they care about is a safe, engaging environment where their kid can have fun, meet new friends, build confidence, etc., and using that type of wording to bring a parent in. Oftentimes, what we found is a really great way to do that is telling stories. And so even now, I'm sure all of you have amazing stories happening in your gyms, for those of you that are open, or if those of you that are still closed, maybe in the past, you've had some amazing stories of kids achieving things in your gym. And when I say achieving things, it's not just, oh, this 14-year-old girl who's going to state championships and winning gold medals. It's, here's the 3-year-old in our ninja program who just scaled the wall for the first time, and it's him at the top of the wall with his arms up because he's so excited. Like, those are powerful stories that a mom can be like, oh, my son is 3. Wow, he would really love that program. Wow, my son could be happy and excited about what he's doing just like this kid. And so leveraging stories to kind of pull on those heartstrings and pull on that emotional action that parents take, or emotional things that make parents take action with organizations. And I know that's a big one for you. I don't know if there's anything you want to add about that piece, but
yeah, it's really important to speak and tell stories about what's going on in gyms. I always am amazed at the amazing things that happen every day in gymnastics that we, as people who have owned gyms or own gyms or work in the gymnastics industry, just take for granted. A little bit like how Hannah was talking about, she takes for granted a lot of things in rugby. We take for granted things that happen in gymnastics as every day. The reality is, things that are happening in your gym every day are quite amazing to parents. Oftentimes parents are quite happy and excited when their child starts walking, right? they might be excited that their kid can run fast. They're excited, you know, with any development that's going on. And oftentimes you guys have things happening in your gym with kids doing backward walkovers and, um, you know, backflips and front flips and all sorts of things that to a regular parent, a regular everyday Joe, is like, wow, isn't that amazing? Doing a really good forward roll at the age of 3 is a big deal. And you have these things happening every single day. My advice is to be capturing those, right? If you have a marketing person in your company, I would not invest in having an in-person person doing your Facebook marketing and your Google marketing and so forth. I would have an in-person marketing person, an in-house marketing person focusing on capturing all the wonderful stories that are happening every day, and then maybe posting them on social media. Sorry, it's that taco truck again coming by. And then utilize a company like ourselves or somebody who's outside, who's a specialist on those platforms, to actually make the most of getting those wonderful stories in front of people. And they make a huge impact. And it really speaks a lot to the parents' why. I would say generally, and probably most of us in this call are parents, we want our kids to be all they can be, right? And whatever that means, that we want them to be as fit as they can be, we want them to be as strong as they can be, as confident as they can be, as well adjusted, as friendly, and as not, all the things that they can be, we want them to be the best they can be. And in a nutshell, I think what gymnastics as a sport does is help kids be the best they can be. And like I said, it's a great foundation for almost all sport because it's strength, balance, power, and it uses the whole body. And if you guys can capture that and kind of like really think about that why, which is parents want their kids to be all they can be, because that's what motivates them. I'm not so interested in sending my kid to do gymnastics because I think he's going to be the next Olympian. I want to send them because I think it will grow. He will grow much better and do much better in life because of gymnastics. Now, I know gymnastics a little bit more. What we need to do is get that message out to the community, right? And then what ends up happening is they start seeing you and your gym as the place to help their kids be all they can be. And that's where that becoming the only thought in your community's mind rather than the number one thought becomes reality. So that mum sees your message over and over and over again. And when she finally decides that she wants her 5-year-old to actually, do some activity, the first thought is you, right? And that once you've got to that stage, you're in control and you're in a powerful position from a community standpoint. Sorry, Hannah, I went on.
No, I was just going to say, I think, so I have a 2-year-old son, and I personally would have not thought of gymnastics as something, because I didn't grow up doing gymnastics. I wasn't familiar with it, but every day I'm seeing gymnastics content all the time. I'm seeing all these little kids smiling and doing these mommy and me classes, etc. And for me, I was telling my husband the other day that there's really 2 choices for him in my mind, and that's gymnastics program or soccer shots. And that's because, one, those are the ones that I know about, but ones that also I've seen that I know that he could have a great time in. And that's just through seeing great pictures from some of our clients. I'm like, oh, wow, I want my kid to be happy like that. And so just thinking about if more people see that content, the power that can have. Something I wanted to add was, so the next bullet I have here is that people do their due diligence, give them the great resume to look at. And if you pride yourself on being a gym that's safe and professional and a great experience, there's things that might, in order for someone to know that, they might have to physically step into your doors, and thinking about the barriers that might be keeping them from thinking that that's how you operate. So if you were to pull up your website today, is it easy to navigate? Does it look professional? Is it clean? Is it secure? All of those things impact somebody's first impression of your business. What's your customer service look like? If somebody sends you an email, are you responding? So if they go to Google, do you have any reviews? If they go to your Facebook page, what's your ratings? Like all these things, especially when we're talking about kids and people making decisions based on where to put their kids, looking at all the different ways that people can research you and making sure that that resume looks great. And so if you're a business that maybe doesn't have a lot of reviews, or you maybe have a couple great reviews and then one really bad one that kind of pulls things down, like making an intention to communicate with your current members and say, hey, would you mind writing us a review? If you had a great experience, would you mind writing us a review? Would you do X, Y, Z? And that can really help, not only, that can really help getting anyone, whether you're running advertising or not, who's looking at your business to take a next action because they trust who you are and they trust the resume you're putting in front of them. Obviously, right now we're in a time where there's a lot of different things happening in our world, and each state and each community is dealing with different things on a whole wide of scale. And that's since March, obviously we've been dealing with the range of ability with COVID and how that's impacted people's decisions with their kids. I know some areas are completely open and people are functioning like business as normal, whereas some places like where I live, a lot of things are still closed or very restricted. And so thinking about where you are and ensuring that you're crafting messaging that's relevant based on the fears and the concerns that parents have. So how are you attacking COVID regulations in your gym? How are you attacking issues potentially with diversity and things in your gym? And like speaking about that and being sensitive to that, because those things could hurt you, but they also could really benefit you if you attack them the correct way. And I think with that, there's been a lot of crisis, I guess you would say, in the last few months. And for me, that really comes down to, with that comes opportunity, where you might be open, the soccer program down the street or the football program might not be able to function right now. So how can you leverage the fact that there's kids looking for activities in your community and marketing to them? Some of you might be running online and in person at the same time. Like, is hybrid model the new model? How does that work for your gym? Even if you could run at full capacity in person, could you still run a hybrid model? Maybe. Like, is that still revenue generating? So thinking about all the different ways and all the different places people are, your parents are in your community, and being creative with how we speak to them, but also the opportunities we're providing them. Okay, so I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit. So thinking about who we're speaking to, that's their language, that's your copy, the messaging. Oftentimes when we run advertisement or when we're on our social feed, the first thing that actually stops us to take the next step is the visual that we're seeing. So a video, a photo, a slideshow, etc. And so these are some of the tips that we use internally to get better results for our clients that I wanted to share with you. So number one, when you're creating content for your business, always showcase happy, smiling kids, showing kids having a great time, enjoying themselves. I also put in something here about focusing on one child. This was extremely important right at the beginning of when COVID was happening, just to showcase visually some like social distancing. Now that might still be relevant to you and your community, it might not. So if that's something that you're still battling with in your local area, I would suggest focusing on imagery with one kid or a couple kids that are distant from each other. And if you are focusing, instead if you're in a location where that's not the case, you can also have groups of kids that are happy and smiling. The next one, when you're so some of you might have noticed this by chance, is that if you're posting on social media, if you have pictures that have text over them versus pictures that don't, you might notice that the pictures with text organically get less engagement. So Facebook typically will favor content with less text. It'll also favor video over images. So Facebook likes motion. So when thinking about, sometimes you want to put text in your creative, but when you're doing that, doing it in a way that doesn't go beyond 20%, because what we've found is that anything beyond that can sometimes impact results and impact Facebook delivering that to the maximum capacity. The next thing is dimensions. So on the newsfeed, both Facebook and Instagram, using a square dimension. And I've added in customizing placements. So if you're running actual advertisement through Facebook and Instagram, there's a series of placements. So that goes from Instagram stories to Facebook feed, mobile feed, audience network, and all of them. There's 3 primary sizing for each placement. And I would recommend using the suggested placement sizing to get the maximum results. And that's a little bit deeper. And I think we talk a little bit about that in our academy and stuff, but if you have questions about that too, we can talk more about that later, because that can get kind of complicated with figuring out where those are. Using bold contrasting colors. So like in this picture, we're using the green and the yellow. So you're in the text, and then also there's some nice contrasting colors in the background with the yellow and the purple, and that's just enough to catch your eye for a second, and then you can analyze, is this for me? Great, I'll take the next step. If it's not, I'll move on. And I've just added this one in because this is one that we often struggle with gym clients, is getting great video content. Sometimes we'll create little short videos, sometimes gyms will have brand videos, but using video organically and through paid advertisement, I would highly recommend. And it doesn't have to be professional grade video. It can literally be a home or a iPhone video of a girl doing a back handspring for the first time and celebrating. So like that type of content that you can also share on your social platform. And another thing that's I didn't list here, but I think is really, really important that I know myself, I'm trying to be a lot more cognizant of, and us as a team, is being very mindful of diversity in your content. And so not just from a gender, but racial and all sorts of diversity being represented, and really thinking about your community and who's in your community, and reevaluating how your brand is coming across from a diversity perspective. And so that's something that I know we're doing, and that I would suggest to any business right now that's putting out content. Okay, so I don't know if there's any questions on that, or Andy, you added anything on that one?
Nope, I think you're doing good there.
Okay. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about who we're speaking to, some tips about things to think about with content. Now let's like break it down to be like, so what exactly am I writing, and what's makes me different? So thinking about yourself, like how am I different from the other gym in my community, or how am I different from the soccer program down the street? Like what about my program or my business is unique that I can sell to parents to get them to bring their kids? And so we're going to go through a small exercise that you can do on your own later, but I would highly recommend doing it. But it's really just writing down the key things that makes you unique. So, and how we get there is we start by kind of, what are the outcomes that your ideal customer truly wants? So this goes into the why, like what does a mom or dad or parent or guardian want for the child that they're enrolling in my program? And so thinking about, even if for yourselves as parents, if you are parents, what are the things that you want for your children, and writing those words down and using, we're going to use those later to kind of like power our messaging. And then also answering how your business can create that outcome from. So let's say you write down, your customer truly wants their child to build their confidence, for example. Well, then now you can say, how does my business do that? Well, we build confidence through teaching kids the fundamentals the fun way, for example. That could be a way that you create that outcome for them. What factors would motivate them to sign up for their program? So these are things that are, I would say these sometimes can be more those things that push people to the line. So like small class sizes, maybe you have a free trial to get them started. Maybe it's an after school program, like thinking about the different motivators that are more technical, and then also some things that are more emotional. So you can kind of pair those two things together. And this is the big one, and this is sometimes the hardest one, is why they should choose you over the others. And it's not necessarily about calling out your competition. It's about amplifying the things that make you different and unique, that parents are going to resonate with, that perhaps your competition isn't doing the best job of demonstrating for themselves. So something that what we often do now, I do this all the time for e-commerce brands. We do it for our small businesses, with our gyms, but thinking about how we craft a unique selling proposition. I think this is a really great exercise to do as a business owner. And it almost becomes your elevator statement, like your power statement about who you are, like your mission in a sense, like who we are and what we stand for. And that can really help set the foundation to craft messaging beyond that. So I did an example here from Hannah's gym, my gym. And so my program is for kids ages 2 to 18. So that's who I serve. That's the people that come into my program. And they're for kids ages 2 to 18 who love being active and making new friends. So this is something that, what do they love to do? And those are the types of kids that I know would thrive in my program. Hannah's gym is dedicated to providing safe spaces. So that's something that I promise. So what are you dedicating to providing for your members? Maybe it's dedicated to providing professional grade training, or dedicated to providing fun and enjoying experiences. Like what are you dedicated? What is your mission to provide? Where your kids can get moving in a fun and engaging activity. So we're dedicated to providing safe spaces, but your kids can get moving and have fun and engaging activities. So what do you do? What are the physical things that you do in your gym? And then I stated how, through our ninja, tiny tykes, and recreational gymnastics. So we do all these things through these specific things. And I also ended my statement with kind of a level of credibility by our certified coaches. So adding on through our ninja, recreational tiny tykes, from our award-winning gym, from our family-friendly location, adding on kind of that member favorite, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of that tail end of credibility. And so this is something that it just gets your brain thinking about who you are and what you stand for. And really, for me, it becomes the foundation of everything I write beyond that. So you can literally write down for blank, who blank, your name is blank, where blank, through blank, and write out what that is for you. And I don't know, Andy, I don't know if you want to say anything about this, but I think sometimes it kind of looks silly or simple, but it really can be super powerful to, especially if you're not comfortable with writing and like putting things together, can really help you start framing your messaging.
Yeah, I think thinking about how you talk about your gym and how you describe why it's a good place to take kids is really, really important. And a unique selling proposition is a real critical part of selling or marketing and speaking, and sharing that message. So I don't think it's something that most gym owners spend enough time thinking about.
Yeah.
But like I said yesterday, we're living in a new world where it's not good enough for us to just have a really good program that no one knows about. We've really got to work really hard at, one, getting the word out to our communities and selling it to our communities. It's a different time. And I think the beauty, if you're looking for a silver lining, this is a really tough time. And if we can get good at it during a tough time, how good are things going to be when inevitably the tough times ebb away and the good times return? Because they will. We know that we're not going to have 100 years of bad times. We're going to have maybe another 6 months to a year of this at most, and then it'll slowly start to it'll start turning and being good times. And right now we can test ourselves and our selling techniques and our marketing and our communication to our communities during the roughest of times, sharpening steel on steel, so to speak. So when the time comes that the economy is thriving and people are feeling good about life and looking to spend money and be a little bit more freewheeling, if we've got a really good sales process and a real good unique selling proposition, and we know how to explain and sell ourselves, we're going to do really, really well. And this is a really good thing for you guys to do. And I highly recommend that you actually do this today. So go away after this training and go through what Hannah's walked through here and come up with what what the message is for your gym.
Awesome.
Mm.
Perfect. So the last thing I just wanted to kind of go through is a checklist, and this is all things that you can do today to optimize kind of some of the channels that you have running or the places that you have running digitally. And these little things can make a big difference whether or not you're running advertising for your business. So one thing that you may have heard this phrase, the Facebook pixel. If you're not familiar with it, you can I guess you could Google it and kind of look it up what it is or talk about it in the group. But installing a Facebook pixel on your website, this is really powerful if you at some stage ever want to run a Facebook ad, because what happens is when you have your Facebook pixel installed, any traffic that's coming to your website, Facebook is learning about who those people are to better target them if and when you're running advertising. If you are running advertising and you don't have the Facebook pixel installed, that's like a big no-no, because you can't actually track anything that's happening once people leave your ad to your website. And also Facebook's not learning about the type of people that are engaging with your website. So that's one that I would highly suggest. It might be a little bit more complicated depending on the type of website you have. But if you don't know anything about it and you're not sure if you have it on your website, I would highly suggest doing some digging into how to get that set up. The next one is making sure your website is secure. I can't tell you how many times we audit websites for gyms and they're not secure. And I don't know if any of you have ever gone to a website and like before that loads the website, it says, are you sure you want to enter this website because it's not protected? And you're like, do I actually want to go to this website? Not sure. Like, you don't want to be that person. You also want to be that person because Google dings you for not being secure. So how to tell if your website's secure, if your browser's open, next to your URL in the search bar or in the bar, it'll have a little lock or it'll say not secure. And if it says not secure, you might need to get some things fixed with that. If you're not super tech savvy, you might need to have somebody that's comfortable with websites to do that for you, because it's a little bit more technical. The next one, this is probably the easiest one, is making sure that your address, phone number, and email are easy to find on your website. I would even add to that in your Instagram profile, in your Facebook page, anything that's online that has your name on it, making sure it's easy for people to know where you are and know how to contact you. So that if people are poking around, it's easy for them to engage with you. I would also add to that have a peek at your Facebook Messenger on your Facebook page, and make sure that you're engaging with that, because we're seeing a lot more people are starting to turn to Facebook Messenger as a means to communicate with businesses. And so if that's something that you don't pay attention to or you don't answer often, I would suggest looking into that and seeing if you can improve the way you're engaging with people through Messenger conversation. This is another one, making sure your website is mobile responsive. We live in a day now where pretty much all new website builders, whether you go through Squarespace or Wix or WordPress, whatever, they all are built with the mobile responsive capability. So if your website is not mobile responsive, you really don't have an excuse anymore. Like, it's time to move on to a website platform that actually serves people based on where they're at. I think the stat is over 80%, if not more, of traffic coming to your website is usually on mobile. Definitely with advertisement, majority, sometimes almost all of it is from mobile. So if your website isn't responsive to that, you'll probably see really high bounce rates or high drop off in actions being taken on your site, which if you're going to send people to your site, you want to maximize the people that are going there. Another thing is ensuring that you have policy page on your website, and that's mostly from like terms and services and policy. This is from an advertising perspective. You have to have that. Google looks for that stuff. Anytime you're running advertising, you want to make sure you have that. We also put it in front and center, and this is more when COVID just kind of broke out, mostly having about information on how you are addressing certain issues in your gym to make sure people are safe. So beyond that, like if you're in a place where you're still struggling to market to people because of the current climate of the virus in your area, making it really easy for people to find how you're addressing that in your gym is really great to answer their questions, but also give them comfort that you are being proactive about how you're handling the regulations and how they vary in your state.
Yeah. Another thing that I'd add on here that we probably should add on here for future conversations, Hannah, is reviews.
Yeah.
Making sure you're consistently generating or getting new reviews both on Facebook and Google.
Yeah.
There's two reasons. One is a human reason, one is an algorithmic reason. From an algorithmic standpoint, Facebook and Google will reward you for lots of good reviews, both organically and paid. So if you're looking to get better Google love from Google searches, make sure you got lots of good reviews. On Facebook, the same. Make sure you've got as many good reviews and recommendations as you possibly can. The good thing about Facebook is that people either recommend you or they don't. So it's either a yes or a no. It's not like out of 5 stars. Google is still doing the star rating. But I highly recommend that you make it just common practice to be asking parents to review you. And it should be regularly. From a human standpoint, because that will, it will allow you to get better organic reach where Facebook and Google will just send you people. But when you start spending money on Facebook and Google, you'll actually get better rates and better auction numbers, which will allow you to reach more people and get more bang for your buck, because Facebook and Google, if you think about it, don't actually produce any content. They don't actually have any information themselves. They actually rely on us as businesses to actually, populate their space with content. So this is their way of rewarding those with good content, right? Being a good business. Google especially, well, Google and Facebook, they want to send their users to good operating businesses that do good business. And if you're seen as a good operating business that does good business, they're going to give you a lot more love. On a human standpoint, the good side of it is, if I do a search and I look at, and there's two, say, gymnastics clubs in town, and one has a 4-star rating and one has a 5-star rating, I'm probably going to the 5-star rating one. Now, if they both have about the same rating, maybe both have 4.5 stars, but one has 30 reviews and one has 100 reviews, I'm going to the one with 100 reviews. Because I don't know any difference. So I'm going, okay, well, hey, 100 people say this is good. Only 30 people say this is good. I'm going to go to the one with 100. And oftentimes those are people that are going to make a decision to probably do business because they're very serious about taking a transaction. So, and it can be make it quite a significant difference to your business. And on Facebook, it's the same. People will look at reviews and go, okay, well, this is highly rated. When you go to a page and you see 4.9 with 200 reviews, you're probably going to feel comfortable with that, rather than a 4. And then finally, from a human standpoint, when you get a crazy person that you do business with, or sometimes don't do business with, and they rate you poorly or don't recommend you, it doesn't really matter so much if there's 150 other people that recommend you or rate you highly, right? The hit that you get is a lot less than if you've got 10 reviews and then one of them says you're a 1-star, and they might not have even done business with you. They just don't like you for some reason. That's going to affect everything much more dramatically because it's 10% of your score. Whereas if you had 150 reviews, if one crazy person does something silly, it's not really going to affect you much. And then in response, to somebody who is crazy and writes something terrible, when it's really important for you to respond to whatever it is, even if they don't write anything, if they just give you a 1-star. And remember, you're not responding to them, you're responding for the sake of the person that might be looking at the reviews and trying to consider what's going on. So you never want to go in there and berate somebody or try and defend yourself. You write it in a way that makes the person that might be looking at it as a third party feels good about the way you answered it, because everybody knows that there's crazy people out there. Everybody knows that there's occasionally somebody who's unhappy. What they want to see is how you handled it. But reviews are really critical, and it's becoming more critical. So if you don't have a review kind of process to make sure you're getting those reviews, please think about putting one in. It can be as simple as asking parents, hey, is there any reason why you wouldn't give us 5 stars on Google or Facebook? And if they say, well, I haven't been that happy, gives you an opportunity to make it right, so they do give you 5 stars. And if they say, oh no, we think you're awesome, say, hey, if you don't mind, if you could go to our Facebook page or Google and do that, that would be good. And I would even consider, if somebody does it right away, to maybe give them a can of Coke or something, a bottle of water or something as a reward for putting in the effort, because it does make a difference, guys. I can't understate that.
I would just add to that, I think we all, as consumers online, naturally are drawn to things with more positive reviews. Like when I'm on Amazon, the first thing I look at is what's the first one that ships per Prime and which one has the best reviews. And then from there, I'd take the further step, right? So, and that kind of ties back into that, having a good resume for people to look at when they're looking at your business online.
Yeah, and it's the ranking, and it's the number of rankings. So people look at the ranking first. They look at 5 stars and they go, okay, well, that's good. But then they want to see, is that a lot of 5 stars, or is it 3 people who've said 5 stars? Yeah. And the more 5 stars that you have, so if you have 100 5-star reviews, people are going to go, well, okay, this is a seriously good business. I want to do business with them.
Yeah. So I just pulled up the last slide, and I think I kept mentioning the group in this presentation. I actually don't know if everyone in here is in the Facebook marketing groups, but we do have a free group that's available that you can join if you're not already a member. And our team posts regularly in there, but there's also a lot of just general discussions about marketing gymnastics in that group. And so I would highly suggest, if you're not a member, to join that. It's free, and you just get free tips and free engagement with other gym owners in the community who are trying to grow their business. We have the Gymnastics Marketing Academy that you can sign up for with a donation. That's basically where our team has created kind of a series of courses, like Facebook 101, for example, like how to advertise on Facebook. We give you some insights into the framework we use to run advertising for gyms all over the country, and kind of give you some tips and tricks if you're like one of those do-it-yourselfers that wants to kind of give it a try to run advertisement for your gym. And then we're also running a kind of like I guess you'd call like a special thing right now with like this reopen project, where you can come and work with our team to whether you haven't reopened or you are open and looking for ways to kind of get yourself back on your feet since being shut down. We're working with the community to try to make that happen, because we're very committed and ingrained in the gymnastics community, the business that we're all a part of. And so we're really trying to work hard to provide that support to the gymnastics community right now, and just bring everybody forward and kind of through this challenging time that we're in. And so we're trying multiple ways to do that.
And I'd like to add just a little bit to the donation. You don't have to donate anything, but you get lifetime access, right? Donate whatever you feel. Don't feel obligated to donate anything if you can't really afford it or things are tight. But please do sign up so you have access to it. And we do update it when we need to. Like Facebook does change things, and things do change. And we update it when there are changes that are made. And we update it when there's opportunities that we found as well. So it's a really good place to go to actually learn step by step how to do it yourself, if you have the time and energy to do it. And then with the reopening strategy, it's a 1 month period that you work with us, and we kind of like get you going. We give you the option to work with us ongoing afterwards, but really it's just about getting everything set up, everything built, all your ads put together, all the systems put together, and then it starts running, and then it's up to you to run it. But it kind of like gets things going if you decide, you know what, I really want to do this, but I don't really want to have another organization running it for me, but I need some help getting it all up and running. And then you obviously have the opportunity to continue with us, or you can try and run it yourself. But it's all an effort for us to keep your costs down to as little as possible, but actually put yourself in a position to get through this difficult period, because it's a limited time. And if we can all like band together to help each other, and we can help you get past this next 6 months to a year, things will be good again. And we just need to help each other get there. And that's what our goal is. So with that, thank you, Hannah. Again, it was a really good training. Does anybody have any questions for Hannah while we're here? Anybody? More than welcome to ask anything.
No questions. Great presentation though, Hannah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just say that if you do come away and you have other questions, I'm in the Facebook marketing group. And so just tag me in questions or a post or whatever. And I'm happy to have a dialogue there if something else comes up too with this stuff. And
hey, I'm going to practice what I preach. So Kelsey, Lisa, Madison, Maggie, and Doug. I'm going to keep calling you Doug. If there's any reason why you can't, is there any reason why you couldn't give us a 5-star review? And if there is no reason and you think we're doing a good job and of value, please go to Facebook or Google and give us a Facebook review because it does help us as well. So I'm going to considering I'm telling you guys about doing Facebook reviews. I think I should probably do it as well. So with that, sorry.
I would say, Andy, it's really hard to ask for that sometimes.
It is hard to ask.
You know, but getting practice of that is really good.
Yeah. So definitely, please consider at minimum today, start putting that into the vocabulary for your front desk, asking parents for those Facebook reviews. It does over time make a very significant difference. So if you want to make a little significant difference to us, feel free to go to our Facebook or Google page or both and actually give us a 5-star review. With that, tomorrow we've got Russell Masters, who is going to be speaking about building audiences. And if I'm honest, that teamed with what you just learned from Hannah is going to be the magic sauce, and making sure that your message that Hannah's been talking about today is going to those that are most likely to purchase. And that is where most businesses that use Facebook fail, is that they're not very good at building audiences and making sure that their message is going to, you know, a mum of a 5-year-old instead of a 22-year-old guy who's just looking to go having a drink on a Saturday and has no kids or anything. You want to make sure your ad spend is not going to that guy, but going to the mom, and making sure that every dollar counts. And Russell is going to be talking about that tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow at 11 Pacific time. Thank you very much. See ya.
Thanks, y'all.